So when you're diagnosing a fuel problem, especially with one of these electric pumps, you want to know, do you have power going to the relay? Is the relay functional? And then is there power to the pump? So 3 steps to determine where the problem is located. So here's what I found out. Step 1, check the fuses. So my primary fuse block is right back here. This 20 amp fuse down here in the corner supplies power to the computer and the fuel pump. I checked it, it's perfectly fine, there's no problem there. So then the next step is trying to figure out any other circuits that might have a fuse. Now most everything's back there, however, sitting right down here in front is our control computer. It's down behind the metal bracket here. And then sitting around the outside here, we've got several more fuses. 3 in front, and then there's 1 down underneath over here. There we go. So I checked all 4 of those to make sure that they're still intact, which they are. I also had somebody turn the ignition on for me and got out here and listened for the relay. Wasn't sure where it was going to be located. As it turns out, it's up in here. So, if I'm not mistaken, the relay for this is here. This one right up top. So I checked it. Sure enough, the relay is cycling, so that means there's power to the relay and the relay is functional. So the next step, yeah, we're okay. The next step is to check the pump itself. So by setting the meter for 12 volts, or more specifically DC voltage, I was able to get up underneath here. Let me see if I can show you where the pump actually lies. I'm not sure if you can see that, but right up there behind that metal is where the pump sits. So, same thing. I was able to get up in there, put the leads on the pump, and have somebody cycle the ignition for me, and sure enough, there is power to the pump. So, the pump didn't function, yet there's power all the way to it, and the relay and computer are operating normally. So that tells me that the pump is the problem. So, next step is going to be to replace the pump. I went ahead and ordered one. So, we're going to disconnect the battery down here and take it out. Then I'll drill out those rivets and we'll pull this tray and I'll show you what it looks like when I'm done. Okay, so we got the battery tray out. You can see it has that big depression there right over the drive chains where the battery sits. And here you can see the fuel tank sitting in here. You know, one of these days, it'd be kind of fun to convert this to electric. There'd be a lot of room in here. Anyway, so here we have our fuel supply and return. And you notice they go up underneath this. Now here's the thing I just realized. Because access to the clamps was not forthcoming. So if you can see up in here, hope you can. Where's my hand? There we go. So, right up in here, this is the fuel filter. And then if we follow this over, here's the pump up in here. So, you got a hose clamp right here. The thing that I realized, the mount for that is not easy to find. In fact, it's still behind stuff and I can't get to it. Then I realized this is the only place in the entire vehicle that has these particular screws. So, when I reach up underneath here, it feels like this is an angle bracket that's attached up in here with these screws. So I'm going to pull these 3. I think that's actually the way to get this system down, and that would make a whole lot of sense if that's what they did. So I'm going to pull these 3 screws, see if I can drop this down and see what I get. I'll show you here in just a second. Well, as it turns out, that's exactly what they did. Alright, check this out. And there we are. Okay, so, yep, sure enough. Alright, these are bolted in. Got nuts on the back here, so it's going to be easy enough to get them out of there now. I'll be darned. Okay, so now all I need to do, I'm going to unbolt the power leads from the pump. I've already got the battery out, so I can do these in either order. Obviously, if I had the battery left in, you would start with the negative, pull that off first. Make sure your ignition is turned off before you go after this one, just to make sure you can't possibly short it out. Then we've got our standard hose clamps here. So I've got a new filter and a new pump. So I'm going to go ahead and work on removing these. This one down here is a squeeze clamp. We'll grab a pair of pliers and pull that one off of there. Then this one over here is a standard hose clamp, so that's going to be easy enough to take off. Same thing over here, 2 high pressure hose clamps. We'll take them off as well. Then I should easily be able to swap out these 2 components, get things running again. I'm going to put the battery back in and try running it before I put this back up in place, and we'll see how it goes. So let me get some things disconnected. I'll show you where we stand. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. So here's the fuel filter I removed. Went ahead and took its clamp off completely. The clamp goes over this hole down here, just like so. And you got this bolt here that holds it in place. Down here we got the clamp for the fuel pump. I didn't remove it completely, I just opened it enough to take the pump off. Then over here, this is part of our vent system. So this just makes sure that any fumes coming off of this end up back in the tank. So anyway, this one I did not remove. I just pulled the clamps back and went ahead and pushed things out of the way. So I'm going to go grab my new parts and get on installing things here. Be right back. Alright, well, let's give this a try, shall we? So I put the battery tray back in place. Got the battery here. I basically just got these sitting here. They're not tightened down yet, but they're on, so that's a plus. Then in the back, I went ahead and left the fuel system exposed so I can check it for leaks and make sure everything's working the way it should. Let's see if we can cycle the pump. I'm going to hold you back here so hopefully you can hear it. Alright. Well, that's a good sound. Okay. Now. Okay. So, I do believe we got this. Ran it for a little bit. Let's see if we have any leaks in here. Spin you around. There we go. Okay. Nothing there. Nothing there. These should be fine because I didn't touch them. Nothing there. Nothing there. We're clean. Okay. So, what I did down here, we got the electrical reconnected. So, the order in which I did this, I know I didn't video actually putting this together, but I put the filter in first just because it was the easiest one to get to. So, put the clamp around the new filter, slid it onto this hose down here, and put the clamp on. Then got the bolt in and got the filter attached. Then I left this side capped as I worked on the pump over here. So I then repeated the technique for this side, slid the pump into its clamp. I had to loosen it up a little bit to get it in there because of the foam. Then I reconnected the power on both sides, checking to make sure that the plus and minus on the pump matched the red and black wires, obviously. Then connected this hose here and got the clamp on. Then went over here, connected the supply line, which is obviously low pressure, and got its clamp in place. Then went over here and reconnected this one, being the shortest, and connected down here with its clamp. So now what we're going to do is flip this over, just like that. And you can see we've got the nut certs on here, 3 of them, that are going to go up underneath these holes here. So I'm going to slide this forward, make sure that I've got the fuel system slid up in there and protected by the steel. and we'll get this bolted back in place. I'll show you what it looks like when we're done. There we go. So we've got all 3 of these screws back in place, bolts, I'm sorry. Here's our fuel system shield. Got a little bit of a hose clamp peeking out on this side, but I think we're okay. Yep, I think we got it. Alright, so I'm going to do one more test up front, make sure that this is running properly. Let's get up here and reach over the top. Yep, I can hear it. Okay, I do believe we got it. So, I'm going to get the battery put back together again, and we should be good to go. All I have left is to tighten down the 2 battery clamps and put the cover on it, fold the seat back down. At some point I'll rivet that tray back in place, but for now I'm not terribly worried about it. Probably what I'll end up doing is cutting these off with a cutoff tool, and then putting some new ones in their place. But for now, not going to be a big deal. I'm going to be sitting on top of that thing, so it can't possibly cause me any trouble. And until then, I think we got another vehicle up and running. I'll see you over the next horizon.